Hello, algebra students. Mr. Lawrence here, and we're going to do four review type problems, and they're going to encompass all the things we've been doing with the quadratic formula. So I'm going to get right down to it so we don't waste too much time. Hopefully you're doing this with me. All right, first of all, I'm going to list A, B, C, easy as -1, 7, -12. There we go. I don't sing as well as Anna, but that's okay. All right, and now I'm going to go look for my discriminant. Remember, the discriminant tells me how many solutions there are going to be, how many zeros. So I'm going to use b squared minus 4ac to get my discriminant. And so I'll put 7 squared minus 4 times -1 times -12. And so I'm going to get 49, and that's going to be a -48. And so my discriminant is 1. All right, that means there's going to be two zeros or two solutions. Remember that the, the discriminant tells us how many solutions. If we get a positive number, there's two zeros. If we get a zero, there's one solution. And if we get a number smaller than zero, a negative, there is no solution. Doesn't mean you can't graph it, just means it won't cross the x-axis. All right, so now I have two zeros. Oops, not sure what just happened there, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and look for my vertex, okay? Now, before I actually do that, I'm going to notice that A was negative. I know that my parabola is going to open downward. So the fact that I have two zeros, they're going to be on the x-axis, right? And the fact that it has open downward, my vertex better end up in either the first or the second quadrant. You know, this is quadrant 1, you should remember that, and that's quadrant 2. Okay, so I'm just doing little checks along the way to see if I'm doing these problems correctly. So let me look for my vertex. X is going to equal -b over 2a, watching my signs, and that'll end up being 3.5. Okay, to get the y coordinate, I'm going to use a t-table. All right, I'm going to plug 3.5 in, and I'm going to plug it in here. So I'm going to get negative of 3.5 squared plus 7 times 3.5 minus 12. Okay, I think this is going to be 1225. And I'm betting that this one's going to be like 24.5. I'm just going to double check on a calculator, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Yep, sure is. And that's a -12.25. Sorry about that. And that'll be a positive 24.5 minus 12. Now look at this. I've got this negative and this negative. It's going to make -24.25. And then a positive 24.5. Well, isn't that just going to be a positive quarter? So I'm going to plot my vertex right away. And I'm going to go to 3.5. 1, 2, 3.5, and then up a quarter. So right about there. So 3.5 and 0.25. Okay, now I'm going to go looking for my my zeros, and to do that, I'm going to use the quadratic formula. It looks like I've ran myself out of room, so hold on. Okay, so due to the quadratic formula, I'm going to do the negative of b, and I think b was 7, plus or minus. Now, I'm not going to do the b squared minus 4ac. I know that equals 1 when I simplify it, so I'm just going to put 1 under the square root, because I already did the work for the discriminant. Why do it again? And that'll be over 2a. And when I do that, I'm going to get -7 plus or minus 1 over -2. So my two problems are going to be -7 plus 1 divided by -2 and -7 minus 1 divided by -2. I'm going to get -8 divided by -2 is 4. And I'm going to get -6 divided by -2, which is 3. And so our zeros are going to occur at 3, 0, and 4, 0. And I should be able to draw this parabola pretty easily because the points are so close to each other. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's go on to this one. Hold on, I'm going to have to give myself more room. Okay, so let's look at this one here. I look in, and I think A is going to be negative again, isn't it? A AC, easy as -1, 10, -25. And so that means my parabola is going to open downward again. When A is negative, my parabola opens downward. All right, so I'm going to go looking for the discriminant, find out how many solutions there are going to be. And so I'm going to do b squared minus 4ac. So I'm going to do 10 squared minus 4 times -1 times -25. And I believe 10 squared is 100, and I believe this will come out to be -100. -100. And so my discriminant is 0. That means there's only going to be one 0. That means my 0 is going to be my vertex. So I'm going to go look for my vertex. X equals negative of b over 2a, and that's going to equal 5. Now I don't need to go to a t-table because I know that my vertex is also my 0, which means it's on the x-axis, which means the y-coordinate must be 0. So I'm just going to go ahead and plot 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. Now I know it's opening downward, so I'm going to have to find 2 points kind of below it. So at this point, I'll go to a t-table, and I know that 5, 0 is in my t-table. Well, I'm going to plug 0 in for x, because it'll make the math real easy. And it looks like I'm going to get -25 when I do that. And so I'm going to come way down here and go 0, -25. And then I'm going to plug 10 in because it's 5 units away from the x-coordinate of the vertex on the other side, and I better get -25. If you're not sure, you can take the time and plug it in, but because of symmetry, I know that that y-coordinate is going to be the same. All right, so now I'm ready to draw my parabola. You'll probably get a little laugh out of how this looks. Not too bad, not too bad. So I'll just go ahead and clone it and then flip it. I don't think I have a shortcut for flip. And there we go. All right, hold on one second. Okay, so let's look at 2 more quick examples. Here we go. Y equals -x squared plus 5x minus 10. And A, B, C, easy as -1, 5, -10. And go looking for my discriminant. See how many solutions I'm going to have. B squared minus 4AC. And I got a 25 here and a minus 40 here, which is -15. Oops, that's not a 15, sorry. A little too free with my pen. And so therefore there's no zeros. There's no solution to this one. So this one's not going to cross the x-axis. So I don't need to go to the quadratic formula on this. I'm just going to go to a t-table. Okay, now I'm still going to find the vertex, but I'm going to get my other 2 points from the t-table. So let me go for the vertex. X is going to equal the negative of b over 2a, which is -2.5, I believe. Put that in my t-table. Now I've got to do the math and figure out what it's going to be. We have the negative of -2.5 squared plus 5 times -2.5 minus 10. All right, so that's 6.25, but it'll be a negative. I'll bet you this is going to be 12.5. Yeah, it is going to be 12.5. And it's also going to be a negative, right? And then minus 10. Okay, and so let me see here. What is that? 18 3/4. Am I going to get -28 3/4? I'm going to check that on a calculator, but I'm pretty sure that that is right. Hold on, let me pause it just to make sure, not waste your time. Okay, just because it was such an unusual answer, I wanted to check it, and I sure did come out with the same thing, so -28 3/4. And so that vertex is going to be way down here, where we got -2.5. It's going to be way down here. And I'm going to label it. I'm not going to actually try to count out -29 almost. It's kind of pointless to do that. All right, as long as I can tell the reader what I'm doing. And now I'm going to pick 2 values of x. And I think I'd like to pick 0, and then I'll pick -5. They're both 2.5 units away from the x-coordinate of the vertex. When I put 0 in, I'm going to get -10. Uh-oh. Something's bothering me. Something's bothering me. Maybe my vertex is wrong. Ah, my vertex is wrong. Look at this. A negative 5 divided by negative 2 is positive 2.5. This point might be right, but it is not my vertex. So I will get rid of that point there, and I will go to positive 2.5, put that in, and that'll change this guy to a positive. That's the only thing it's going to change, is that this is going to be positive. So it's going to change that 12.5 to a positive. And I like this better. This is what I expect to happen. So if I combine these two numbers, I think I'm going to get 0.25 and then a minus 10, which would be a negative 9 and 3/4. 3/4, sorry. So there we go. That looks a little bit better. So we're going to 2.5 and negative 9 and 3/4. So 2.5, 9 and 3/4 would be probably right about there. Negative 9 and 3/4. And I'm going to plug in 0, but I'm going to plug in positive 5. So I plug in 0, I'm going to get negative 10. And then when I plug in 5, I will also get that same number. So this parabola is going to be really wide. It's going to be something really like this. Okay? All right, we'll do one more example. And here I'm ready to go. A, B, C, easy as negative 2, 5, negative 10. It looks like a very similar equation, only A has changed. Okay? Well, let's go looking for my discriminant. 5 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 10. And we're going to get 25 minus 80, which is less than 0. So I'm going to say there's no solution. There's no zeros. This parabola does not cross the x-axis. So I'll go looking for my vertex, and again I'm going to get negative 5, and this time I'm going to get 2 times negative 2, and I'm going to end up with a positive, I won't make the same mistake, 1.25. So in a t-table, I'm going to put 1.25 in for x, and when I do that, I'm going to get negative 2 times 2, 5 squared plus 5 times 1.25 minus 10. And I can do that on my calculator, just type in exactly what I wrote down there. And so I'm going to end up with a negative 6.875. And I like the fact that my vertex, the y-coordinate of my vertex was negative, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, right about there. I like that because I knew it was going to open downward because A was negative and there were no zeros. If it was opening upward and no zeros, then my vertex would have been above the x-axis. So, okay. So now I can use my t-table and go looking for the other points. I think I'm going to put 0 in, and 0 is going to get me out negative 10. And then 1.25, and 1.25 is 250, isn't it? And so at 2.5, I'll get negative 10. So 2.5, negative 10. And then my parabola is ready to go. All right. So we have been doing lots and lots of stuff with parabolas, and I would be expecting a quiz sometime really soon. All right, Mr. Lawrence signing off. Have a good night, everybody.